Hello, my name is Samar. I also go by Sam or First Time Panner. Any of those you want to call me, you can. I'm still a little bit stuffy, but I still wanted to film this. Just maybe like a few days ago, backstory, I was just laying in bed. I don't know really what I was doing, trying to fall asleep, but clearly I have trouble doing that. But all of a sudden, I just started thinking of that tag where it's like, if you could only keep 10 eyeshadow palettes, what would you keep? And then I had to immediately make the list, and then I went to bed. So this will be if I could only keep 10 eyeshadow palettes. This was pretty hard because I feel like every time I do this is, I think the third time I've done this, it gets more difficult because I just accumulate more and more eyeshadow palettes that I do love, and also I kind of like discover exactly what I love in an eyeshadow palette, so I feel like I'm maybe acquiring less and less duds over the years. Originally, I was going to include my 5 runner-ups because yes, there were 5, and even that was hard to choose, but I was like, the video is going to be way too long, and I just want to keep this the basic if I could only keep 10. No more like loopholes, no more me talking about other palettes like I've done in my past videos. This time I'm only going to name 10 eyeshadow palettes. So the first two they kind of go together. I knew immediately that I was going to keep these, and it's my Danessa Myricks Lightwork Freedom palettes. So this one is the first Freedom palette, which is Lightwork 6, I think, and I just put it into its little, I put it into the little, like, I stacked the panels because I used the outer packaging as my Z palette for my palettes are tumbling, for my face palette Frankens. So I kind of just kept the first palette in its little stack, and it works perfectly fine just like that. But I guess I'll show you each panel. So this is the first one, this is the second one, and then this is the third one. It is just so beautiful. I fell in love with this palette when it first came out last holiday season, and the second one recently was released this past month, and of course I had to buy that one too. So this is Lightwork 7, the second Freedom palette, and this is the like 10th anniversary palette, so it's supposed to be special. I wasn't going to automatically buy this eyeshadow palette just because I loved the first one, but I told myself if I like the color story, I will. And from the teasers, I don't know why the like teaser photos made it look so bad, but I was like, oh, I actually don't think I will get it. And then when it was released, I saw it, and I immediately that day bought this palette. Now I will say, here's mine. My black shade did break, and as you can see, it's a little bit messy in here. I tried to clean it up. That is, I think, the one downside of this eyeshadow palette. The black is like, it has some metal in it that is magnetic, so why would you put that in a magnetic palette? But anyway, this is not a review of the palette. I would want to keep both of these because not only does the packaging of the two complement each other, you can like mix and match and swap between these two. I just love the shades and the colors and everything in here, and the quality is good. So yeah, I definitely would keep both of my Lightwork palettes. Also, I don't know if you can see my laundry basket in the background. I like shoved it to the side, but you can still see it. But yeah, other than my Lightwork palettes, or Lightwork palettes, I'm already struggling. My other obvious keep is my Dose of Color. She's a 10 palette. I mean, sorry if this is a spoiler, but this literally won my entire palette tournament that I did last year. So if I wasn't keeping this palette, that wouldn't really make sense. But this is, at least as of last year, this is my favorite eyeshadow palette in my collection. It is so pretty, and if you look at this and think that's nothing special, you should really look at, I featured this in my No Pan Left Behind series last year, and also of course in the palette tournament. I talk about this so much, so I'm not going to go too in depth with this palette, but not only is this, actually I was gonna say, not only is this the regular amazing Dose of Colors formula, I actually like this formula better than the regular Dose of Colors eyeshadow formula, which I always thought was impossible because that's my favorite eyeshadow. But there's just something about this palette that is so good. Like the mattes are so amazing. They're like pigmented but blendable and so like smooth, and I don't know, they just like last all day. And then the metallics, even though we do have who is we? The royal we. But there are some actual sparkly shades in here, but then we also have some just straight up metallics. And then this black is such a good, like both of these mattes actually, the black and the like, I don't know, red velvet cake shade, they're literally the most pigmented, like one swipe full opacity. As far as swatching them, they're so good. They're like, they blow me away. They're actually amazing. I don't know how Dose of Colors did that. And then it's just like a neutral everyday palette, but also has some pops of color, like with this reddish shade and then this kind of bluish steel silver. I just think it's an amazing palette, and I don't know, more people should own this. I believe you can still buy it. If anything happened to this palette, I would repurchase it, and if I ever seeing it being discontinued, I will repurchase it proactively, because eventually this will go bad and I would want to have it even after it went bad. A palette that came in, I don't know, third, it was in the semifinals of my palette tournament, is my Sigma Ambiance. This was also it was one of the two Pan That palettes of last year, 2024. I didn't like, or was it 2023? I honestly can't remember anymore, but I didn't make like the biggest amount of progress, at least not like most panners. I have pan in 3 shades in here, and then I have some dips in some other shades, but I just love this palette so much because it just offers, as far as a neutral palette, it's like it has both warm and cool tones, but it mostly leans warm, and I just think this is such an easy go-to palette. Sigma isn't my absolute favorite eyeshadow formula, but it's definitely up there, maybe like top 3 eyeshadow formulas in my collection. And I just think the mattes are so easy to work with, and the shades in here, the metallics aren't the most like punchy special metallics ever, but they are really pretty and good quality. And then this shade Candlelight, to me it is special because it's like a metallic and a sparkly shade at the same time, and it's just such a beautiful, I would swatch it, but I don't want to get too deep into swatches or this video is going to be like an hour. But Candlelight is like one of my favorite like shimmer sparkly metallic shades in my entire collection, because it's kind of like, you know, one of those special neutrals where it's just like so beautiful, and even though it's a cool tone, it somehow looks so good on my very warm skin. I just love it so much. Oh, and then the shade Marigold, which is kind of like a gold, almost red shifty shade. It's so pretty and very unique to my collection. I love it. And then I love my favorite Super Shock shadow. I'm really going into detail with these palettes. My favorite Super Shock in my collection is called Moonwalk, and it's a green red shift, and it looks amazing topped over this shade Summer Solstice, which is like almost the exact same shade of red in that Super Shock, and they just look so good together. And I don't know, this palette just is so versatile, even for just being like a neutral nude palette. I get so much use out of it and I love it. And also that would be another repurchase. I'm pretty sure this is a permanent palette for Sigma. I would definitely repurchase that if anything happened to it, or if I finished a shade in there. And then I would say the cool tone version of that palette for me and my collection is the Melt Cosmetics Mary Jane palette. This is an eyeshadow palette that I fell in love with immediately after seeing it. I just think it is so beautiful. I know some people, and this is discontinued, so you can't get it anymore, unfortunately. I know people say it's difficult to work with, but I think that's because I haven't had issues with it. I think most people are saying that because it is a deeper palette. Like, this is the lightest shade in the palette, and it's even deeper than my skin tone. Most people saying that they had issues with the blendability of this palette just had very light skin tones and were using too much eyeshadow, because I never had an issue with the quality of any of these shades. Back in 2022, I moved and I thought I lost this palette and I immediately repurchased it, and then turns out I didn't, so I gave that palette to my mother. But yeah, as soon as I thought this was not in my collection, I made sure that it was again, and I'm so glad I did, because then they very quickly, I think like within a month after me repurchasing this, discontinued this palette. I am so happy that I have this in my life. I love, my favorite look to do with this palette is pairing Gaspar and Sweet Lucy, because they're these like green olive tone browns. They're so beautiful, and it even has like a tiny bit of gold shimmer in there that I don't think you can see, but they're so absolutely stunning. And just my favorite, like, Sweet Lucy is one of my favorite shadows in my entire collection. Sorry if you can hear my chair creaking, but it's just that like murky green metallic grungy type of shade that I absolutely love. Like, this is the epitome of like what makes me drool in an eyeshadow. Yeah, I love this. If I could repurchase it again, I would. So if Melt ever brought this back from like a vault sale, I would buy it again. Other than green, my favorite eyeshadow to wear, like as far as color, is purple. So I had to pick my ABH Ravina Pro Volume 5, because look at this. And okay, it's already peeling and I've only had it for like maybe a year and a half, so that's annoying, but look at what's inside. Like, come on. That's just like pretty much, maybe not every single purple, but nearly every purple eyeshadow that I could ever want in my collection is in this palette. So even though it's not like the best formula, not that it's a bad formula, none of the well, I'll get to that later, but really none of these palettes would have a bad formula or I wouldn't pick them. But like, this isn't the best formula of eyeshadow ever, and maybe some of the shades are very similar to each other and I don't need every single one of them, but I just love purple so much. And I will say, I do have some shades in here that I don't have anywhere else in my collection. Like, it's unique to this palette, and some that I just think are so beautiful. Like these two shades that I would consider an inner corner shade. I'm pretty sure this one is a duochrome. I haven't used it since last year. And then this glitter is like a true glitter where it's like, I wouldn't really want to use it on my eyes all the time, but the one time that I did, I actually thought it was really pretty. Yeah, I just think this palette is really pretty. It even has those, like in this corner, it has those mauves that I absolutely love. So yeah, I wouldn't say this is like the best purple eyeshadow palette in my collection, but it definitely has the most to offer, clearly, because it has so many pans. So I would choose to keep this one. Then for every other color, because pretty much everything I've shown so far, other than the Danessa Myricks, is just neutral, because I love my neutrals. I would want to keep the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. Now, I do not support neither Natasha Denona or her brand, nor do I think Natasha Denona is worth the money for what you get and the quality. However, I would want to keep this Metropolis palette because it has so many different colors in here that I would not be keeping from my other palettes that would, in this scenario, no longer be in my collection, especially the oranges. Granted, this palette does have a lot of repeating shades, and I mean, like, when you swatch them, they are identical. But to keep my oranges, and then we have these teals over here that I love, and some blues, I would choose to keep this palette. I do not like this palette for the neutrals, except for this shade here. I think it's called Queen. This is actually a pretty inner corner shade. It's just a plain metallic. Other than that, I do not like the neutral shades in here because they're never true to color and they just like do not really blend out well and they fade. But other than that, like as far as the colorful shades, and most of the colorful shades as far as the mattes are the cream to matte formula, which I do actually like of hers, I would keep for that. So I would be keeping my Natasha Denona Metropolis eyeshadow palette. Also, this palette was very expensive. It was like the same price as a Danessa Myricks palette is now. I don't know why people weren't complaining about that, but they were complaining about Danessa Myricks. Kind of another pair that I would keep is both of my Huda Beauty palettes. I loved specifically these two. Not saying I wouldn't buy any of her, I mean, I think they're all discontinued now, but not saying I wouldn't buy her previous large palettes, but these two are the ones that really spoke to me. So first is Naughty Nude. I did take out the slippery shade just because I bought this on clearance and I didn't know how old the palette was, so I didn't want it potentially molding, and then if one shade in here got mold in it, I would probably just throw out the whole palette, but I didn't get rid of it because I was scared of it, like a lot of people were saying. I work with Petri dishes every single day. But anyway, I think this palette is so beautiful, and it's very pink toned leaning neutrals. I feel like a lot of people say that her and Pat McGrath just make a lot of pink toned browns and pink toned neutrals, and I honestly have no problem with that because pretty much all the other neutrals I'm keeping are just straight browns. So I think this palette is so beautiful, and the formula in here is so amazing. Dare I say even better than Sigma, and I do love Sigma. I would say my top three, so maybe Sigma's number 4. My top 3 would be Pat McGrath, Dose of Colors, and Huda Beauty. I've never tried her smaller palettes, but this one and the Pretty Grunge is just like such good quality that I would even keep it for that, even if there were different shades in here, just for the quality of especially the mattes in this palette is so good that like I don't see myself getting rid of this ever. And then I think this palette also has a lot to offer as far as the special shades. Like all of the shades in here are shades that I would want to use and are just so beautiful, and some of them are even unique to my collection. Like I don't want to flip you off, but like this shade right here, this one called Flower Power is kind of like a dusty white gold shade, but when you kind of like buff it into your eye, it turns into this just beautiful white gold eyeshadow topper. It is so pretty. I just feel so pretty when I wear this, and like not only do I feel pretty, but it also looks like a very beautiful punchy eyeshadow look. And then for the Pretty Grunge, I was deciding between this and my Pretty Cool palette from Dose of Colors because of the like mauve tone neutrals in here. I love mauve tone like cool brown neutral, which is a very specific like niche type of eyeshadow, but it's like one of my favorites. I love a slightly purple mauve-y leaning yet brown neutral cool matte eyeshadow, and this has that. My Dose of Colors Pretty Cool also has that, and to be honest, Dose of Colors did it first, but clearly this is expanded upon because a Dose of Colors is only a 5-pan all matte palette, and this one has not only other types of mattes, but it also has a bunch of metallics and shimmers and special shades in it, so this just has more to offer. I do think either in last year's or the year before that, the Pretty Cool was in my top 10. Like I do love that palette, not only for the color story but also the formula. So don't get me wrong, I love that palette, but I would just choose this one over it now because it's a lot more versatile, and these would also give me the cool tones that I love. Finally, I am to my 10th palette, and this one, as always, was the most difficult because it's like I only have room for one more eyeshadow palette in this hypothetical scenario where I can only keep 10 in my collection. And I noticed that the only brand that I did not still have in my collection is Pat McGrath, and I feel like the palette that I chose goes against my reasoning, but basically I love Pat McGrath for I mean I love her shades, but it's mostly the quality that I love because people can say that Pat McGrath is too expensive, and I think maybe for a 10-pan eyeshadow palette I wouldn't pay full price Pat McGrath prices, but I think, you know, you really do get what you're paying for. Pat McGrath has the best eyeshadow quality on the market as far as I've experienced, and in my opinion for what I'm looking for in an eyeshadow. I absolutely love her quality. I don't have all of her palettes because I'm not absolutely in love with all of her color stories, but I do think if you're just looking for pure quality, you go with Pat McGrath. So of course I had to choose a Pat McGrath palette, but then the palette I chose has no mattes in it, and I feel like Pat McGrath's mattes is where she truly shines because it's very difficult to formulate like a matte, and her special shades, obviously her like special shades that are in her, like her mothership palettes. I don't even know if this palette technically has either of those, but I chose to keep my Interstellar Icon quad from Pat McGrath because I just think this is such a pretty palette. This was the first Pat McGrath palette I had ever wanted, and when I went to buy it, it had just been sold out, and then years later it came back in a vault sale and I snatched it up immediately. I think it is so pretty. I do make looks like with just this quad on its own. I combine the two neutrals and then I combine the two colorful shades. So I do think of this palette not only as a companion but also as its own eyeshadow palette. And then also this blue is my favorite blue eyeshadow in my entire collection. I love it so much. This is the reason I like blue eyeshadow like in the first place. I never thought it would look good on me until I tried this. It's a duochrome, and it actually, the base pigment, which is like purple, it goes really well with this shade, which is a satin, which is why I pair those two together, and it makes one of the most stunning eyeshadow looks I've ever made. I have a picture on my Instagram somewhere. I did it like January of 2024, and that was like one of my favorite eyeshadow looks I did all year. It is so pretty. So I just wanted to keep this one, even though I do have the, I think it's Subliminal, I think it was like the first mothership that ever came out, the one with the blue. I do have that one as well, and then I also have, I think it's called Bronze Seduction, that like warm brown 6-pan eyeshadow palette. I do have those, and I absolutely love the quality of all the shadows in there, but I think this one is just more special to me, so this is the one that I would keep. So that's it for this video. Yeah, I kind of just like thought of doing this randomly. I had very spontaneously made my list. I didn't think about it too much and too hard, but I like a week later stand by my decisions, and I'll probably end up doing this next year and every year that I am kind of like posting content, because this is so fun and it also shows me like how my preferences have changed. So I will link my previous ones in the description box, so if you're just, because I actually haven't watched them since editing and uploading them, so if you want to watch them, I probably will too, just to see like what my reasoning is for choosing those palettes. But yeah, I need to go get some breakfast and get some Dayquil so that I can breathe through my nose again. Let me know in the comments what either your top 10 or just like your top 1 or 3 palettes that you would keep in your collection if you could only keep a certain amount. Maybe if you have like 1 or 2 that are very much standouts that are like, no, I cannot part with this eyeshadow palette. But that will be all for this video. I will just see you in my next one, and until then, I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching. Bye.